Good morning and welcome to yoga here at the Brighton Buddhist Centre, Titchbourne Street, BN2. No, actually, I don't know the postcode. Anyway, welcome. Here comes the screen. Okay. Make sure you've got a couple of blocks, if you have blocks at home, and a blanket and a belt. Behind me. So we're going to sit on a blanket. We're going to use two blocks like this or a cork block, short end forward like that. And we're going to sit in Siddhasana for a moment or two. So when we're in Siddhasana, we have the heels lined up with each other and the midline of the body. We'll have the chest lifted and the chin and chest towards each other, a sort of mild Jalandhara Bandha. And we can have the eyes closed or half closed, as you like. And so with the chest lifted, we can also lift, we will necessarily be lifting the ribs. The back ribs draw forwards, the lower ribs draw in, and the chest lifts up. We'll bring our hands to prayer position at the heart. And we're going to divide Om into three phonemes. Originally, the O sound was an owl sound, if you go back further in language. And in the Upanishads, Om is sometimes divided up into and these are sometimes equated with waking sleep states, dream states, deep sleep states. And then after the sound of Om, what's called the fourth, or Turiya, which is sort of consciousness in all states, sort of waking up in all conditions. So we'll chant Om as as an Aum, 3 times together. So we'll take a deep breath in. And then some deep breaths. Just come and go. And we'll release our hands from the prayer position. And we're going to bring ourselves to a squatting position on our blocks. You might need more than 2 blocks to squat like this. You might need 3 or 4. We're going to lightly press our arms into our knees with our hands together. And in this way, create a bit of traction on your back. So you can feel you're stretching your back muscles and the fascia of the back. And you can create a bit of movement if you want to help augment that stretch of the back. So you're pressing your arms down gently, and you're investigating modes of movement that can lift your lower back, stretch it. And you might be sitting on 2 blocks as I am, or 3, or 4. There's a downward action or energy that's natural that you might feel on the top of the thighs, sort of go down as your chest goes up. It's just natural, but it's worth feeling into. And by feeling into it, you might even augment it. You might even deepen it a little bit. The muscles around the tailbone, pubococcygeus, for example, you might be able to massage into those muscles, which we perhaps don't always appreciate, that they get tense and tight. And that release is useful. And we certainly will see for ourselves that the release is connected to the breath as well. The release of the tailbone, the release of the breath, the release of the mind, and all go together. From this position, we're going to lean forwards, knuckles on the floor, ape-like, and then we're going to lift the bum up. As you lift up, you might be able to turn your heels out a little bit more, the higher you lift. And eventually, we'll bring our ribs to touch the thighs, and we're going to hang in a slightly bent kneed version of Uttanasana, so that we can really rest the back, so the ribs are just reiterate are touching the thighs. And breath is deep. You could take your hands out of the gorilla mode and hold your elbows or hold your biceps. It's possible that 1 or 2 people might, through various movements, straighten the legs, but the back should not hold any tension whatsoever. And so often moving the feet, if it's unlikely that our hamstrings are open enough to straighten the legs and have a peaceful back. But if it is possible, it will probably be only possible through movement, getting the heels to move, getting the toes to move. Bend the knees again, bring your hands onto your thighs above your knees, straighten your elbows, and take 2 or 3 or 4 deep breaths. Continue your ascent, coming all the way up. You can clear your accoutrement, which is French for blocks and stuff, off your mat, and bring yourself to Tadasana. So toes spread, breathing through the nose, hands to the heart. And we're just going to repeat that Om that we did before. And because it's really nice. And well, just reiterate that the O sound is the later version. Originally, the sound was ow and becomes O, historically speaking. And we do find this instantiation still in some of the Upanishads, the Aum. And just to reiterate that this is often associated with waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and then the sound after the sound is gone is associated with the Turiya, the 4th state, as it's called, Turiya. So we're going to imagine we're passing this Aum up through the central channel and out of the crown of the head. So let's take a deep breath in. And then a deep breath comes and goes, of course. And so does another. And then when we're ready, we raise the arms up. Lightly and reiteratively toning the tummy in reiterative in and up waves from all directions, from the front, the sides, the back, range around seeking waifs and strays that you can incorporate, you can find, you can include, and that means everywhere. You know, the back of the body, the back muscles, the neck. So with the arms raised, the tummy draws in. We're reiterating in and up actions, and we're searching for little muscle fibers that we might be able to find and include, as well as searching for areas that might be holding tension that can and should be released, like in the neck, for example. Press your feet, raise your fingers on the inhale. On the exhale, Utkatasana. So it's a bent knee position, and a bit of movement can help us incorporate. So moving left and moving right, and moving in various ways to, incorporate. Again, searching for any parts of the heart, mind, body. It's one thing that for one reason are not included. Sometimes we've got an emotional hurt and then the body's tight. Sometimes we've got a physical tension and then the breath is tight. So, release one thing to release all things. Standing up when ready, big circle, hands to heart. Take a breath in and a breath out. Turn to face the midline of the room and stand about the length of your foot or a bit more away from the end of your mat, with your feet close or together. They don't have to be together, but they should be close. Raise the arms up. Lightly tone the tummy, find the pelvic floor. Make sure the roots of the neck are soft. Inhale, exhale. Down you come to the floor, probably bending the knees. It's a rule that we don't want to experience any dullness, aching, or pain in the back. And if we do, we need to take steps for that to release. So more clearly, if we don't want to experience those in a sustained way. So in the unlikely experience that your legs are straight, it may be that if you lift your heels, you can alleviate any dullness or aching or pain in the back. Or it may be that bending the knees more will alleviate any dullness, aching or pain in the back. Or it may be that some movement, but one way or the other, we need to alleviate any dullness, aching or pain. We mustn't tolerate it. We've got to find ways to release it. So, of course, this is Uttanasana. We're going to step back after checking our hands are symmetrical into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, and really pad into a meditative, deeper weave with your palms and the mat. The heels, of course, certainly at first, I think, are best off the floor, because it's really important and useful to focus on the back, getting some length, because oftentimes when the heels go down, that jams the back, and then we can no longer feel any stretch and extension through it. If the heels go backwards, that should be part of an action that draws the thighs upwards and then backwards at the top. So if the heels go backwards, the thighs go up and the top of the front thigh goes back, like you're being pulled back with a belt. But if you are pulled back with a belt, you really get a stretch in your back. That's what we want to feel, a really good stretch in our backs. Take your hands wide enough for your collarbones to feel they've got space as you bring your shoulders forwards. If this is problematic with your hands flat on the floor, of course, you can do it on your forearms instead. If there are any problems with the wrists, this kind of thing often is helpful. So breathing into it, moving this way, moving that way. Jaw soft, eyes soft, breathing naturally if possible. We're going to bring one knee towards its own elbow, as it were, which is a sort of form of fun, not really. And then we'll bring that one back. We'll do the same with the other one. And we'll bring that one back, and we'll come back to down face dog. After having so much fun, we'll have a little rest in down face dog. So stretch the armpits, You really use your intuition to feel into your body, feel into your back, jaw soft, eyes soft. We're going to bring the feet a little closer to each other and raise one leg. You choose which one, doesn't matter. You've only got two, as far as I can tell. So you raise one, and then you can play with it. You can turn it out, you can turn in, you can lift the standing leg, heel up and draw it down, bending, extending, whatever works for you. We're going to sweep, perhaps, the foot forwards into the place of its own hand on an exhalation. Now, that might take a couple of steps in reality, but whatever you can do. And then landing the back knee behind you on the floor, not too much weight on it, because we're going to lift and land it a few times with a view to stretch the groin. And then we're going to stretch the groin more by climbing up onto our front leg with our hands. If you've got pain in the back knee through the pressure on the floor, focus on a release of the inner groin upwardly, which is a psychophysical release. It's psychophysical. So many of us pick up stuff all the time. In Jainism, they say that we're quite sticky. So we're picking up this, we're picking up that. Things stick to us. And then the more things that stick to you sort of become heavy. So it's very important that when we get these invitations to release, that we take them. There's nothing that's useful to hold or carry. The best way you can operate in this life is light. Keep letting go. You might follow through with the arms. Remember, it's a psychophysical invitation to let go. And there's nothing worth holding on to. There's nothing, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I've got to hold on to this problem or that problem so that I can sort it out before I let it go. But if you let it go, you don't have to sort it out. It's not there anymore. Come forwards, well done. To hands and knees momentarily, just to check your hands are level. Back up to your Adho Mukha Svanasana, your downward facing dog. A little bit more dynamic this morning because of the cold. Armpits open is a meditative, investigative experience in the present moment. Armpits open is you have to investigate that in a way that's meditative. Stretching the inner, stretching the outer, stretching the under. And always finding ways to keep your palms meshed into deeper and deeper weaves with the mat. And stretching up through your back. Heels would go back of the thighs go deeper, supporting the lift of the front of the thighs. Make sure your feet are not too wide as you raise the other leg to the one you raised before. And similarly, play. You can bend, extend, you can lift, you can land, you can turn in, you can turn out. You can shake it all about. You can do the hokey cokey. No, you can't do the hokey cokey. You've got to sweep your foot forwards on an exhalation, and it comes into the place of its own hand. It might be 2 or 3 of those steps, and the knee will land behind the pelvis. This, of course, is Anjaneyasana, which is one of the names of Hanuman. So it's this sort of homage to Hanuman, who is a monkey god. And really focus on the stretch and the psychophysical and respiratory opportunity to release. Nobody has to release, and it's not a given that we will release. It's an invitation. Climb up if you're ready onto your leg with your hands, and that will increase the enthusiasm of the invitation. So, yeah. It's like if someone invited you to their party, first you get an invite through the door, very nice, thinking about it. And then, maybe later they actually knock on your door and say, are you coming? And then you're still not sure. And then a bit later on, they come and they turn up with a taxi for you. And so it's like that with the post, especially when you raise the arms. That's like, taxi? So at that point, it's making it easier and easier for you
to take the invitation. It's sort of, it's almost just what's required. The invitation to release. Okay, well done. Super groovy. Back to hands and knees, if you please. Take a breath or two, maybe wag your tail if that feels like there's any utility in that. And then when you're ready, take the knee furthest from me and bring it directly behind its own wrist. And the foot moves diagonally across the body as you stretch back your other leg in your own time. For most people, it's going to feel like the most effective release to come down to your forearms. Your breath's going to open up. It's going to feel like a release. That's exactly what we're looking for. For less people, but it's possible. Being in the lifted up station is the most meditative, but you know, if you're not sure, go for the coming down, and you can always try the coming up as well. But it's about the breath, not about thinking. It's just about the breath. Breathe through the nose if you can. And again, it's an opportunity to release what we're holding simply through saying yes to this. By saying yes to this moment, it comes in like a wave and takes over all what the body was doing. It refreshes. And that refreshment is our release. Okay. If you are up, come down. If you're down, come up, so that you can tuck your back toes under and bring your back knee forwards and come back to hands and knees and take a deep breath in, followed by a deep breath out, maybe even a sigh if you want. So a few deep breaths and staying loose and hopefully, spontaneous. Let's bring the other knee forwards when we're ready. The foot moves diagonally across the body. This is Ekapada Raja Kapottasana. And massage it in. And again, I'm very confident that most of us will feel optimal release by coming down to the forearms. And that's all we're looking for. We're not looking to qualify this in terms of our ideals, you know, or keeping up with the Joneses in some way. But either way, you know, down or up, as long as the breath is releasing, which is our indicator that the mind is releasing. I'm really going for that, you know, that breath-centered release. Great. If you're down, come up. If you're up, come down. And so again, you can tuck your back toes under, come back to hands and knees. And we'll come to the high heel kneeling position, which I know isn't loved by everybody. So, but what is useful to know is that you can take little bite-sized chunks. So you can push back to stretch your foot arches. And if that feels okay, you can come to your fingertips. Is all about breathing into it, and it's enough. If it's enough to stimulate breath release, then it's enough. And some people are comfortable to come up, and that's fine too. The stretch is half of the journey, but it only takes you, if you were comparing the journey to crossing a river, into the middle of the river, which is not where you want to be. The second stepping stone, it takes you eventually effortlessly to the far shore, is giving to the stretch, which we do via heart, mind, breath. And it's through giving to this that you release that. That's how it happens. It's through giving to this that you release that. The Buddha says you use a smaller piece of wood, like a skilled carpenter, to knock a larger piece of wood out. So the smaller piece of wood is this moment. And the larger piece of wood are attachments that we might have. We'll come forwards again to the fingertips and we'll lift up. So the heels will be off the floor, but it's a squat of sorts that we can breathe into. Jaw soft, eyes soft. And from there, we're going to lift until the heels can come down onto the floor. With bent knees or straight legs, some people find with straight legs, they can get a release in the back. As I mentioned, lifting the heels can be a very good way of doing that if you've got quite a large range of motion already. But for most of us, if we're honest, and of course that's part of yoga, our backs are going to feel best with the knees bent. So it's all about how the back feels and how the breath is responding. Movements can help to loosen the back, of course, and commonly do. And these kind of stretches for the back of the legs will also help to avoid problems like plantar fasciitis. If you didn't bend your knees, bend them now. And if you did bend them a bit more so your ribs touch your thighs. Raise your arms behind you like you're skiing. Come forwards and up into Utkatasana. And finally standing up all the way, big circle. Tadasana Namaskara. Reach for the foot that's furthest away from me by first lifting the heel, secondly lifting the leg, thirdly reaching down and seeing if you can hold your big toe with your index finger, middle finger, and thumb. If you can't hold the big toe, it's fine to hold the leg and pull it that way. If you do hold the big toe, make a loop, not a hook. In other words, trying to go circulate round the leg with your, round the toe, not the leg, with your fingers. Breathe through your nose. We're going to pull the leg up and out to the side. And breathe through the nose. Good opportunity to have a smile. And then some people might want to extend the leg out to the side, extending the opposite arm to help with the balance. But you can also just keep the leg bent. Either way, it's a good challenge. And then coming back down, placing your foot, catching your breath, shaking out, and taking a few deep breaths. And I'm pretty sure it's obvious what we're going to do next in the class. Raise the other heel. Okay, so when you're ready, raise the other heel, raise the foot, reach down, and perhaps holding the toes, but it's absolutely just as good to hold the shin instead. Breathing. I always think this pose is very much about the standing leg, about making space in the thigh and the groin. And then up and out, and with the possible option of extending the leg. It's an option, and you might want to counterbalance with the, the other arm. Don't hold the breath. You are allowed to smile in the pose, but you don't have to. You're also allowed to grimace. That's another option. Well done. Calmly coming back. And then turning around and stepping apart. Now you'll need a block because we are going to come, quite frankly, into Ardha Chandrasana. There's no point me beating about the bush. It's Ardha Chandrasana. So block is useful over on the right side of your mat. I'm just going to adjust the lighting a little bit. And you're going to step your left foot to the left side of your mat. Your left foot to the left side of your mat. And I do a little lighting shift. Okay. Ready for Ardha Chandrasana, which is the half moon posture. Good. Left toes in, right foot and leg out, turning on the ball of the foot, finishing off with the turn on the heel. Raise your arms to raise your ribs. And pelvic floor has a buoyancy that keeps the goddess energy in to the central channel. So, it's very, I say it's subtle. It's not, it doesn't feel subtle to me, but I think there's a danger of thinking this is some sort of muscular gripping. It's more like a current that influences everything gently, like a current. Inhale, exhale, coming down. Uttita Trikonasana. Breathe easy. Eyes relaxed and soft. A sense of connection between the bottom shoulder blade and the top arm. So it's a sort of breath-centered drawing down of the bottom shoulder blade that opens up the chest, extending up to the fingers. Good job. That's great. Enjoyment, bhoga, empty of groin, aparigraha. Open and honest, satya. These, of course, elements of yoga. Arm down, bend your knee. Walk your back foot towards your front foot. And there's your block. It should be lined up with your 4 outer toes. And you've got 1, 2, 3 height options, plus a directional option, plus the option not to use a block. So you've got lots of options. Coming up when you're ready. Try to avoid turning the toes in of your standing leg, if you don't mind. And breathe easy. Keep your top arm on your top leg and just walk along it. Might be your first Ardha Chandrasana of 2024. Yeah, there you go. It's of course for celebration. Breathing and experimenting. It's exciting, not thinking about the past or the future. I think we experience similar levels of thrill to what people experience at amusement parks like Thorpe Park. But no queuing, no junk food, no empty bank account at the end. Okay, good. Wunderbar. Bend your knee, stretch back to where your foot was before, back into your Trikonasana, which, compose yourself. Cool, calm, collected, lots of subtle adjustments. And then coming up on the inhalation. Good job. And then we're going to walk our feet towards each other and migrate, if that's the right word, to the other side of our mat. A little bit of dribbling of the block to the other side. You've got your different options. So remember, you've got height options 1, 2, and 3, and then a directional option. So you can turn your block from that way to that way is another. That's the option I prefer, or no block. I also like that. We're over on the other side of the mat, right foot on the right side of the mat, back toes in, front foot and leg out, turning on the ball of the foot first, finishing off on the heel. Will give you heel to arch alignment. Raise the ribs, and perhaps you can feel that little energy nudge. All it's doing when energy is kept in the central channel, is it's just stopping us getting into our normal reactive polarities. I think you know what I mean. Inhale, exhale, reactive polarities. So when energy is in the center, it's not in any polarity, it's in the middle between all choices. If you're into Shaivism, you would call that Shiva. That pure potential, that ground of pure potential, is often known in the tantric version of Shaivism anyway as Shiva. Breathing, eyes soft, brain soft. Investigative, expressive. Arm down. Notice if you're getting excited already. Walk your back foot in. Make sure you don't turn your toes in. That block should be about the length of the block ahead, lined up with the 4 outer toes, or it can be the other direction as I've got it. And you lift up when you're ready. Try not to turn the toes of your standing leg in. And we're going to do the version where we're walking along the top leg, and that will lengthen our bottom ribs a little bit more. You never know what you're going to find. So, be ready and willing to respond appropriately to whatever's going on. It's probably a bit too much of an ask, but just for some people, lifting up the heel of the standing leg actually helps to relieve the hamstrings, although it makes balance probably a bit more exciting. Great. Bend your knee. Calmly. Recompose yourself like a cat that's had a little moment and then pretends everything's fine. Jaw soft, eyes soft. It's a meditative, breath-centered, falling in love kind of modality. Wonderful. Come on up on the inhalation. Well done. Turn the feet to the front and walk your feet towards each other. Have a little kick out. And just to honor our Radio 4 friend, Michael Mosley, Dr. Michael Mosley, we shall balance, he says, but if you practice balancing for 5 minutes a day, Michael Mosley says that people live on average 5 years longer. So I think that sounds good. Michael Mosley also says you should eat chocolate for good health, and he says you should dance, and he says you should eat beetroot. So that's the reasons why I like Michael Mosley. Breathe, easy to yourself, brain, happy and buoyant. And so we're going to practice balance again through Vrikshasana. And what's great about Vrikshasana is it is a truly ancient yoga practice. This is not something that we find with most of the poses, but this one is. And you can do it in lots of different ways. So we're going to raise the right heel. You can rest the heel on the ankle. That's a version of Vrikshasana that you can really, I think you can get into that. I could definitely get into that. You could also, another version is to cup the knee. And then, of course, you can also bring the foot really high up into the top of the thigh. That's another version. And you press your foot into your thigh and your thigh into your foot for adhesion. We've got the hands in prayer. And of course, it's a great practice of Kshańta, patience. Okay, release your hands and place your foot and take a breath and shake it out. So release your breath if you're holding your breath, because sometimes we do when we feel a bit tense. We're going to bring the other heel up similarly to the ankle or to cup the knee or at the top of the thigh. It's worth saying that you can also use a chair for your hands in this pose. Breathing is through the nose, ideally. a truly ancient practice. Standing on one leg, there's no evidence to suggest that it was called tree pose. But standing on one leg, out in the hot sun, holding a stick, totally naked, was definitely an ancient practice. We're not going to be totally naked. It's not the weather for it. But we can do parts of the other parts of it. Okay, well done. Release. And bring your foot down. Have a little shake out. We're going to take our feet hip width apart. And we ascertain hip width by pushing the pelvis to one side. And you feel where the bones stick out furthest. That's how we ascertain what is hip width. We look down at our feet and we make sure that we're not being stingy with our hip width. Some people are quite stingy like that. That's a stingy hip width. We want to be properly generous with the hip width. Spread your toes and make sure your toes don't turn out. The feet usually are triangular, a little triangular shape in that they're wider at the toe end and narrower at the heel end, usually, not always. So widen that toe end further, and then imagine a line that goes straight through the gap between the second and third toe and out of the middle of the heel. And that's what you're standing on, parallel lines. That's how you ascertain your foot alignment. Raise your arms if you're ready. Lightly tone your tummy. Find the pelvic floor. Again, there's this beautiful sense of all that we're doing really is stopping energy falling out of the pelvic floor and into the channels either side. The channels either side represent our habituated energy, our sort of conditioned, you could say, by society, by our family, by our life story. Conditioned and compulsive and compounded and created energies, which are part of the cycles of samsara. And by keeping the energy from falling out of the pelvic floor, we keep ourselves from this reactiveness that just causes further reactions in endless cycles of reactiveness, like you're in a sort of tumble dryer, up 1 minute, down the next. So keeping in the central channel keeps us out of that reactiveness. That's the whole goal of yoga. Inhale, stretch up. Exhale, fold down. Again, bending the knees if necessary, which it almost certainly is, to bring the hands flat. Some people might be able to, with straight legs, alleviate any dullness, aching, or pain through movement, which I mentioned earlier. It can include lifting the heels, but it is essential that we don't have any sustained dullness, aching, or pain. So bending the knees is a good solution. Moving the legs is another solution. This is Uttanasana. We can hold the elbows or hold the biceps. If you hold the biceps, it switches on the leg muscles a little bit more and helps us release from the hips. If you hold the elbows, it helps to elongate the side ribs. Don't, however, hold the breath. Let that go. Now bend your knees, or bend them more if they're bent already, until you feel the contact of your ribs with your thighs. Totally let your head go. Totally let your back go. Totally let your breath go. And climb up onto your thighs just above your knees. Straighten and lock your elbows. Breathe through your nose. Continue your ascent by walking up your legs at your own pace. Get your energy down into your feet so you avoid any dizziness, and have a little shake out, a breath or two that way. We're going to step the feet generously apart. You might need blocks ahead of you for Prasarita Padottanasana. Turn your toes in. especially, and extend the little toe side of the feet. Breathe easy, careful. Don't fall off the world. Extend the little toes as much as you can within a calmness conditions connection. So, calmness, of course, is where we begin to, our reactiveness is less and less caught up. We're less tied to these compulsive tendencies. So yogis often call that non-attachment, less tied. Inhale, stretch up. Exhale, hinge from the hip joints, fold over the top of the front thighs. Now, this is where you might use blocks. Some people's hamstrings are quite long and the pelvis just keeps moving. Well, you go with the pelvis as far as it goes. As soon as the pelvis stops moving, which means the hamstrings have sort of got to their current max, the max of the moment, but that will change. As soon as the pelvis stops moving, because the hamstrings have bitten, as it were, then you stop moving. And that, in truth, for most people, means staying on fingertips on blocks, because after that, many of us, if we were to go further down, we wouldn't be hinging from the hips. It wouldn't be a pelvic movement. It would be flexing over the abdomen, which we definitely don't want to do, because we want to keep this goddess channel open and we want to keep focused on it. And we want to add movement where it's useful and expressive breath where it's useful. So for many of us, being in what's called Prasarita Padottanasana Ekam, number one, with the fingers on the floor and the chest open, is absolutely a great position. And for others, some people, it's comfortable to be lower. That's fine. What matters isn't whether you're high or low, but whether you're breathing into it and experimenting with releases. Okay. Back to fingertips and walk your feet a little closer to each other. Get as high as you can on blocks or fingertips before coming up slow and calm, pressing down to the heels, walking your feet towards each other, shaking it all off a little bit, and coming down to your mat with a block, cork block or purple. Some people prefer the purple block, folding the other side of your mat over and then back on itself again, like that. And you're going to kneel on that folded over section, quite simply. Good job. And then you're going to extend your leg out to your block, which is on this side. The standing leg should be left sloping, just a little sloping. And the block cuts in where the ball of the foot intersects with the arches. You're definitely not in the middle of the arches. You're definitely not in the middle of the ball of the foot either. You're on the point where the ball of the foot intersects with the arches. The knee turns up, the arms stretch out, the palms turn up, you stretch your arm up. Sorry, it sounds like a weird poem. And you come down when you want, and blah, blah, blah. And raise your arm up. And, there's the option to go up and over, but that's pretty intense, man. So you might not want to do that. This is Parigasana. I'd be willing to bet money that this is your first Parigasana of 2024. getting some affirmations of the truth of that. And breathing easy, getting a beautiful sky coming now at the Buddhist center. Inhale, coming up. That's the morning espresso of yoga. And we move to the other side, similarly, folding the mat, refolding it for that extra luxury that we deserve. Everyone deserves in the universe. And extend to the block, heel to knee. Stretch your arms, turn your palms. Lightly tone the tongue. Breathe through your nose. Inhale. Exhale. Look up. Stretch up. Maybe over. It does rather turn the volume up if you do stretch over. Padagraha, empty of grasping. If it's empty of grasping, it must be full of something. Spontaneity, intuition. PEA, beautiful. Come on up. And kneeling, of course, use a block if you need to between the heels and buttocks. Take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 deep breaths. Eyes soft, shoulders relaxing. Breathing through the nose if you can. Mahabandha, Mudra. So we're going to fold over the end of the mat that's most lateral, closest to the outer wall. So that side like that. Fold over a third of it. Make sure you've got a belt nearby as well. Because that's useful for Mahabandha, Mahaveda. Mahabandha, Mahamudra. We're not going to do Mahaveda. These are the three main hallmarks of what defines in the early stages Hatha Yoga texts, the text before the Pradipika. So having drawn the buttock flesh out and back and taking a breath or two, you can sit on a block, by the way. If you do sit on a block, you bring the block back on the side that's furthest away from me. You bring the block back on the side that's furthest away from me. And then taking the leg that's furthest away from me and drawing that back, either to the top of the opposite thigh, or possibly, but not so likely, to the top of its own thigh. And then we take the strap, the belt, and we bring it around the foot. How long the length of the strap depends, of course, on us. But we want the arms to be straight and the spine to be softly upright. And we're going to soften the knee, the bent knee that is, through softening the breath. Pull on the belt and lift up. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Softening the knee inside, the muscles like the popliteus muscle inside the knee softens. Eyes relaxed, jaw relaxed. And then we'll add the bandhas to make it Mahabandha. So that is, we'll draw the tummy in, lift the chest up, and we'll feel this little nudging energy that sort of just keeps the energy in the central channel. So it's a pelvic floor area, this energy, but it's been massively materialized, made into a sort of materialistic version with muscles pulling and so on. It's caused all sorts of problems with people overdoing their mula bandhas. But actually what it is just keeping energy from dropping out of that lower end of the central channel. We can add Jalandhara Bandha as the chest lifts and the chin draws down. So we've got Uddiyana Bandha, Mula Bandha, and Jalandhara Bandha. Okay, release. These are powerful Hatha yoga techniques. Let's release slow and easy. Stretch out. Give yourself a rub down if you need it. If you're on a block, pull it back on the other side, ready to bring the other leg back. And when you're ready, similarly, bring your other leg back to the top of the opposite thigh or the top of its own thigh, which gives a different kind of stretch, much more dynamic on the psoas. And then once you're ready, the belt goes around the foot. And you soften the inside of the bent knee. And breathe. You pull on the belt to stretch and open the central channel. This Mahamudra. Which means Maha, of course, means great. You will recognize it from Mahatma Gandhi. Maha plus Atman means great person or great soul. So Mahamudra is a term, of course, that we know very well from Buddhism. And it's a condition of sealing your mind in the unity of all things, which is means that you're not particularizing. Everything is everything. Again, we can bring the bandha element in, keeping that buoyancy at the pelvic floor, the tummy drawing in and the chin and chest towards each other. All we're doing is stopping energy from falling out of the pelvic floor and then falling into the adjacent channels. So it's an effective way of working with this general theory of South Asian soteriology, which is the theory of karma, which is that actions have consequences and then lead to reactive states ad infinitum. And it's getting off that ad infinitum reactive cycle that is the goal of these soteriologies. Okay, coming out of that beautiful bandha. And we're coming straight down to our last posture, trying to keep it on time for the new year. We're going to lay on our back and into Shavasana. So his eyes closed, jaw soft. Oh, enchanté. So palms face up. Shoulder blades scoot under. Skin, muscle, bone, soft. And even if when we practice yoga, we only have a short time for Shavasana, it can still count. that beautiful correlation between settling and expansion. The more of the one, the more of the other. So as not to be tardy. I know that you'd like to stay lots longer, and I'd like you to as well. But to try and keep it on time, and a bit of a New Year's resolution. We're going to wiggle the fingers and the toes and take some organic stretches. It's definitely worth coming round for a beautiful sunrise that's happening in Brighton right now. We're going to bend the legs, place the feet on the floor, roll onto our side, facing away from the shrine side of the room. A couple of breaths there before rolling towards the shrine side of the room. And a couple of breaths there before calmly coming up and bringing your hands to prayer position. Because it's Tara on the shrine, instead of using Om, we'll use Tom, which is her Bija mantra. When we say these affirmations or wishes. So after each wish or affirmation, we can say Tom, so we'll say it 4 times. May all be happy, Tom. May all be healthy, Tom. May all see goodness, Tom. May there be no worries, Tom. Thanks so much for coming, Roomers. Thanks so much for coming, Zoomers. Much appreciate your time as ever. Have the best of days. Enjoy the beautiful sunrise. What a beautiful day it's going to be. It's absolutely bloody cold, freezing cold, but we love it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.